Hello, my name is Kelly Rawl, and I'm the coordinator for pre-kindergarten and family engagement. Welcome to our practical parent education program, and this session is called Understanding the Family System as a Whole. I want you to know that I have been trained in making these presentations, and I am a certified practical parent education facilitator, which is credentialed by the National Council on Family Relations. So I would like to go ahead and share my screen now so that we can get started. I'm going to open my PowerPoint. That was what I need to do. This was the button I needed to click on. Okay. If you have a piece of paper handy, I'd like for you to draw a paper doll, kind of like the one that you see here, and decorate it. And if you want to skip past this, but just remember the idea behind this doll is to have it represent your child. Okay, and so we're going to do something with your paper doll here in just a minute. If you don't do it, then pretend you did and follow along with why we had to do that. As I mentioned before, I am a certified presenter for practical parent education, and my name is Kelly Rawl. My team is here to support you. My team and I are here to support you in any way possible. We are the Family Engagement Department offers a variety of services, and we have teammates who speak a variety of languages. If there's ever anything that we can do to help support your family, we certainly would like for you to reach out to us, and we will do the very best we can. If we can't help you directly, then we will refer you to the right people. And so the way to reach me is by email or by phone. My phone number is 817-399-2083, and my email address is KELLY@hebisd.edu. And I think I have that later on in the presentation, but I just wanted to make sure that I give you that information up front. Today we're talking about understanding family systems as a whole. And I want you to know that we have several lesson objectives for today. One, learn how the family system influences individual members. Two, understand how parenting styles are carried from one generation to another. That means we parent the same way our parents did, usually, unless we intentionally change something. And number three, identify and develop your own strengths as a parent. These are our goals, but notice, none of them say, judge our participants or tell you you're being a bad parent or that one parenting style is better than the other. What we want you to do is think about your own parenting style and see if that will have the best possible impact on your child. I'm a mother and a grandmother. I'm an educated person, but I'm by no means a perfect parent. And I'm not here to tell you what to do. Children don't come with an owner's manual, and no one is born knowing how to be a good parent. That means it's a learned behavior. We all learned from our parents, and as adults, we are perfectly capable in making changes in how we parent our own children. So look at this quote. Just one way you do get back home. You have a boy or a girl of your own, and now and then you remember, and you know how they feel. And it's almost the same thing as if you were your own self again. as young as you could remember. This was penned by James Aggie. He lived from 1909 to 1955, and I wonder what this quote says to you. I'm going to read it one more time. Just one way. You do go back home. You have a boy or a girl of your own, and now and then you remember, and you know how they feel. And it's almost the same thing as if you were your own self again, as young as you could remember. To me, this says that when we parent our children, we will probably do it the same way our parents did it. And so when we're doing it with our own children, we really do know how they feel because we were there once. And that's important to remember, that we do typically parent our own children the same way we were parented. And a lot of us think, oh, well, I turned out okay. It should be fine for my own kids. And really, a lot of things change over the course of a lifetime. And we do know that society has changed and expectations for parents have changed. And so what happened when I was a little girl, which was a long, long time ago, what was acceptable then as a parent is not always acceptable now. And so as a parent and as a grandparent, I have to make some conscious decisions not to do things the way my parents did them. So think of the atmospheres in which you grew up and how those atmospheres have affected you as an adult and as parents. So think about your home environment when you were growing up. And one thing that I remember saying is that my mom used to always say, life is not fair. You know, I'd ask her if I could do something. No, why not? That's not fair. Sorry, life isn't fair. That's what she would tell me. And so I heard it so much that I thought, I will never tell my children that life is not fair. But guess what? I told my kids life is not fair. Because that was a life lesson, and my kids had to learn it just as much as they did. But I also got a spanking or two from riding my bike on the road. We lived in town. My parents wanted to keep me safe, and they said, don't ride your bicycle in the street, which meant we had to ride our bicycle in the yard, which is difficult because you know how it is trying to ride a bicycle in the street, in the grass. It's harder, and you don't have very much area to ride. And so, of course, I would sneak around the corner to try and get away with riding my bike in the street. But my father was a highway patrolman. And you know this. He drove his highway patrol car, around the corner and turned his lights and sirens on at me as I rode my bike in the street. Well, I got a spanking that day, but I'll tell you what, he didn't have to spank me. I learned my lesson as soon as he turned the siren on. So anyway, and I'm not a highway patrolman, so I can't do that with my kids. But I can't spank them either. And really, when my kids were growing up, spanking was still a little bit acceptable, but it was kind of on its way out. There weren't any cell phones for people to video you and put your behavior in the grocery store on TikTok or Facebook or Twitter or any of those places. But now, as my kids are raising their kids, and believe me, I have grandkids who possibly could be parents. They're getting old enough. Thankfully, they are not parents, but spanking is not an acceptable measure of discipline these days. So certainly, the atmosphere of home and parenting and discipline choices are not the same as they used to be. So you made your little paper doll, okay? Or if you did, just kind of follow in your mind, picture yourself doing these things with your paper doll. So as families, we're like the whole world to our children. We've molded and shaped them to be the people that they are currently. But then we send them out into the world and they have a hard day at school. The world is a harsh place. So here's something, crinkle a leg, or fold an arm, or whatever, to signify what happens to them when they have a hard day at school. Or maybe they have an accident at the school and are embarrassed. And so, like, they accidentally wet their pants. Okay, so they're embarrassed. And this impacts them as a person. They won't ever forget it. So something is done to your dog. They crumble away or bend an arm or they're off part of their head or whatever. The child made a mistake and you yelled at your child or spanked them. Again, do something to your child that there's no guilt. And then again, someone made a mean comment on social media. Because of cool these days, and cyberbullying is a real thing. And so again, bold those people your dog. So look closely at your child now. What has happened to your precious little boy or girl? See how these new environments have impacted your child? It's not a pretty picture, is it? So think about your kids. What are your long-term goals for your children? What qualities and character traits do you hope your child will develop as he or she grows into adulthood? So when my children were little, I wanted them to grow up, kids, and be happy. But one of the main things I wanted was for them to grow up in a two-parent household from the time they were born until forever. Okay? And unfortunately, I had to get divorced. My son was 4, my daughter was 2. And so in just those 4 short years, my long-term goals for my children were demolished. But they have rebounded, that they didn't let having divorce parents get them down. And so my long-term goals of graduating from high school, going on to college or tech school, something like that, getting married and having kids, those things have more or less come true. And when I think about the quality and character traits I hope your child will develop, I think that in many cases, they have developed those qualities and those traits. And I can see a lot of me in what they do and how they do things. And then again, they do some things very differently than how I would do it. So clearly they have adjusted, they've adjusted well over time. And I'm happy about that part. So we know that children are affected by the family environment. The family environment affects the whole child. Their emotions, their behavior, their brain capacity, cognition, their personality, and their character, their competition, skills, and self-esteem. These are all affected by the family environment. But then there's some other things that come into play, such as temperament and individuality of the parent and the child. And then there are also social influences and family position. So are they the first child or the last child or the middle child? If there's change or loss in the family, such as illness, handicap, death, or divorce, like most of them experience. And then whether or not they're a boy or girl, whether they are a boy or girl, or if they prefer not to say. So it becomes important as parents for us to think about what kind of parenting style am I actually using. And today we're going to um, talk about 4 specific parenting styles. So studies over the years have identified these 3 family atmospheres. So one is authoritarian, where the parent is rigid and inflexible, controlling and demanding. Then another one is permissive, where the parent is too flexible, wants to be the friend and rescues their children too much. And then authoritative was the last one that they identified originally. And here, the parent remains the authority figure through communication and positive discipline and boundaries. But later, another researcher came and then they added the one that you see here, uninvolved parent. And this is where the parent may be physically present or physically absent from the child. There's little communication, little involvement, very little interest on the parent's part. So when you think about these, we see that we have some visuals that go along with them. So think about the authoritarian. If we were in person, I would be showing you all of these. I'm showing you all of these objects along with the visuals. But when you look at the first one in the upper left, the authoritarian, that is symbolized by a rock. Rocks are rigid, they're not flexible, they're hard, they're harsh. So the rock symbolizes the authoritarian. The authoritarian is also symbolized by that box that you see in the middle. And so, in an authoritarian household, everybody needs to stay in the box because that's what the adult in charge wants, and that's what the adult in charge gets. And then look right below that. There's the permissive child, and this is this is symbolized by a wiggly line, and it's wiggly because the kid does whatever they want. They go wherever they want. They say whatever they want. They don't do things that they don't want to. And the object that symbolizes the permissive household is the marshmallow, because the marshmallow is soft and you can squish it and you can mold it and you can shape it. You can push it around easily, like in the rock up there, in the picture of the rock, that person is trying to push the rock and the rock isn't budging. You can push a marshmallow around. So that's the permissive household. Then if you look right next to the permissive household, there's the uninvolved parent. And this is, you see the bubbles that the little girl is blowing. She's having a fun time blowing those bubbles. But just imagine the uninvolved parent is like one of those bubbles. And they float around. They might be there physically, they might not be there physically, for whatever reason. And the reasons that parents are uninvolved are many. We can't go into all of them now, and some of them are out of the control of the parent or the person in charge. But the uninvolved parent is out there, and sometimes if the bubble pops, the bubble goes away. So sometimes the parents just disappear completely. And so they're there 1 minute and they're 4 minutes. Now look at the picture and the tennis ball above that. This is these are the symbols for the authoritative family or household. The tennis ball is firm, but it can be squished slightly. It can be pushed on, which means that it can be negotiable, but it's negotiable within a certain boundary. So you see the squiggly line that we saw um, in the permissive square, but that squiggly line has a circle around it. And that circle is around it because the authoritative community will set appropriate boundaries and guidelines for their children to follow. And so kids can do what they want to do within those boundaries. And as long as those boundaries are there, then the children are going to be safe and they are going to be loved and cared for. So I kind of told you how each of these props represented the family atmosphere. But how does that make you feel? I really want you to think about that. Look back at this chart. So if you had to characterize yourself into one of these parenting styles, what would it be? Remember, we're not saying that one style is better than another one, or that everybody needs to be X style. We're not saying that at all. What we want you to do is think about what style you are and whether or not that is going to help your child reach their ultimate goals. Okay, so that's 3, 4, 5. Okay, so now think about the atmosphere at home. These are parent behaviors. So if the parent acts like this, if they are rigid and controlling, demanding, they're punitive, they have adult-like responsibilities, there's very little give and take, parents make all the decisions, there might not be much expression of warmth or affection. Ideas and feelings and emotions are all kept to yourself. Independence is discouraged. There's not a lot of praise, and there's excessive dominance by one parent. So when you look at this list, just make a mental note. You see some of yourself in this list. Well, then, if this is how the parent acts, then what do you think is going to happen to the child? How does that affect the child? So the child will feel a lot of tension and conflict. There might be a lot of distrust between the parent and the child. The child might have a lot of hostility towards the parent, and there could be common power struggles. A strong-willed child might rebel against their parents, and a milder child might be timid and have low self-esteem. These children might also be very dependent. They might not be able to make decisions on their own, and they might be afraid. Sometimes, when they grow up, they reject all of their parental values, and they can even develop other antisocial behaviors. So, just think about the parent acts one way, that has an effect on the child. Let's look at the next one, the permissive parent. So remember, this is where the kid does whatever they want to do. And so this means that the parent might be avoiding their exercise of control. There probably is high nurturing and communication. There probably are a few rules and guidelines, and if there are some, then they are inconsistent. The parent can be easily frustrated and just gives it, fine, go ahead and do what you want to do. I don't care. The parent might provide little structure and have few expectations. They might not have many demands for responsibility and behavior, and they tend to lack mutual consideration. There might be a lack of mutual consideration in parents. Parents are here more as a resource than a shaper, and they don't encourage obedience or responsibility for external controls. So how do you think that affects the kids? Well, children of a permissive parent or in a permissive household might feel insecure. They might have a low self-concept. They might have difficulty adjusting to structure when they start school. They could be immature, and they may lack self-control altogether. So when they go to school and there's a lot of structure comes, there's your chair, sit in it, and follow directions. They may not appreciate that and not know how to respond to it. They could be irresponsible. They might lack social skills, and they may be thoughtless when it comes to the feelings of other people. They may be less willing to live by parental standards. So if the parent was permissive when they were little and then the child goes to school and suddenly the parent says, oh, now things are going to change at home, then the child might not be open to that. And then they may have a high rate of antisocial behavior. Now let's think about the uninvolved parent. There are some commonalities between the uninvolved parent and the permissive parent. So again, rules and guidelines. And if there are some, then they're going to be inconsistent. And oftentimes, when the parent is uninvolved, then the child has to take on the role of being the parent. So they're taking care of themselves. The parent is absent emotionally or emotionally unavailable. When you look at this picture, the parent has headphones on and is on their device. In the uninvolved household, there's no structure. The child's not engaged in anything. They might be on their own device or watching TV, and there may not be any attachment or bonding between the parent and the child. So, when you think that, you'll see some of the same outcomes for the child who lives in an uninvolved household. So they don't know if their parent loves them or not. They're insecure, and they may have difficulty getting along with and respecting others. They may have difficulty adjusting to structure and rules, just like in the permissive household. They may have little self-control because no one has taught them how to behave when they leave the house, or even when they're inside the house. They could be irresponsible or disorganized. They might not want to live by society's rules, so nobody can tell me what to do. I'm my own person. They may be at an increased risk of being the victim of abuse or neglect, and their peers become a major role model. So if they're in with the wrong crowd, then that could be a problem. And they appear to have independence, and really they feel insecure, and they wish to have more structure outside the school and inside the home. So now let's look at the authoritative parent. In this household, parents are clearly in charge. They have firm but well-defined guidelines. The boundaries can be flexible, and there is a high level of communication. There is respect for ideas, feelings, and emotions, mutual respect and consideration. There's often the idea of family as a team, and there is some give and take. In an authoritative household, children are allowed to make mistakes, and if they make mistakes, then you learn from it. There are reasonable expectations for children. In the authoritative household, no one expects the children to go out and work when they're 10 and bring home some money to help support the family. That's not a reasonable expectation. and you won't find that in an authoritative home. The parents are healthy role models when they encourage independence and autonomy, nurturing and affection. So, how do you think this impacts the child? Well, there are close family relationships. The child grows to be socially and emotionally mature. They are self-confident, they have high self-esteem, they are achievement-oriented, they are independent and yet creative. They have developed some leadership skills. They probably have fewer fears. They're cooperative and friendly, responsible, and they make good decisions for the most part. They're willing to take a risk. They are worried about others and can often be service oriented. For the most part, they're happy and they remain close to the family values and beliefs. And there is a lower rate of antisocial behavior. So, when you think about your household and your child, the question is, what kind of household do I have? And how is this going to impact my kids? I don't know that I ever really thought about it that much. And so that means that there probably were things that I should have done differently, but I was unaware of them. I was unconsciously unaware. I didn't know what I didn't know. And that happens a lot. That since you're watching this presentation today, you're becoming consciously aware of the four types of households. And you can evaluate your household to determine if that is what you want your household to be, and if the predicted outcomes for children are the ones you want for your children. You are perfectly capable of making a change in your household if that's what you think is necessary. So one of the things that we saw on all four slides was either inconsistency or consistency. So just think to yourself, how does that or the lack, how does consistency or the lack of it affect kids? Which atmosphere seems to be the most prevalent in today's society, and why? Which atmosphere might be the most risky environment for children? Why might an authoritarian style not be effective in today's society? And when parents are unsure of how to respond to a situation, which direction might be the safest to move forward? During adolescence, a period of separation and independence, what might occur if parents are too authoritarian and too controlling? That's something I have to remind myself about, because right now I find myself I'm a grandparent raising a grandchild, and my grandchild is maybe 16 in May. And so, there's that give and take of letting her be more independent and yet still maintain structure in the household. A lot of it has to do with trust. And if you trust what your child is going to do when they're not with you, then it's easier to give your child more independence. But if for whatever reason that trust has been broken, then it's very easy to want to go back into that controlling state. So all that to say is that character is really defined by what people do when nobody's looking. Do they do the right thing? Do they make the right decisions when nobody's looking? Or do they take advantage of that and say nobody's looking, not to do what I want to do, and make it bad? So that's what we try to remind our grandchild of is, what kind of person are you going to be? And what does that mean? Does that mean that you make good decisions even when nobody's looking? And that's what we hope. That's what we hope he does. So, in closing, I really want to encourage you to assess your family's strengths and weaknesses. If we were in a group together, then we might actually talk about these things, but since you're watching a video, I want you to think about it. If you're watching it with your spouse or significant other, then talk about it with them. What is something that you would want to improve on? Remember, Rome wasn't built in a day. If you think you need to change the way that you're parenting your child or children, then you're going to have to make those changes slowly and consistently over time. It will take time. So I just really encourage you to think about what kind of family system you have, and then what kind of family system do you want to have, and what's going to be ultimately best for your children. So here's a poem. We don't know who wrote it, but it is a pretty profound poem. Children are like kites. You spend a lifetime trying to get them off the ground. You run with them until you're both breathless. They crash. They hit the rooftop. You patch and comfort, adjust and teach them. Finally, they're airborne. They need more string, and you keep letting it out. But with each twist of the ball of twine, there's a sadness that goes with the joy. The kite becomes more distant, and you know it won't be long before that beautiful creature will snap the lifeline that binds you two together and will soar as it is meant to soar, free and alone. Only then do you know that you did your job. I want to tell you, thank you very much for watching this video. I enjoyed preparing it. We actually did have this session in person back in November, and so we had it live, but now we want to make it available to you as a video. We have also had establishing authority as a parent, as well as attachment and bonding between parent and child. And you can see all three of those videos, as well as the other two by the end of the year, posted on our Parent Academy site under recorded sessions. We hope that the ones that we have live online that you will attend, but just know that this is just one series. This is the first series of this, out of all of the modules that we have to work with from this program. These are the ones that we have planned to share this year, and we're going to be choosing other topics for next year. If you have any questions, I want to remind you that my department and I are here to support and serve you. So please reach out if there's anything that we can do for you. Again, I have teammates who speak Spanish, Arabic, and French, and we're able to assist you in a multitude of ways. And if we can't help you directly, then we will, of course, refer you to the coach because we can help you. Our desire is to be a great resource to help support the families of ATD ISD. My contact information again is Kelly Rall at hedisd.edu. That's KELLYRALL at hedisd.edu. And my phone number is 817-399-2083. 817-399-2083. Thank you again, and have a wonderful rest of school. Bye-bye for now.